Hey guys, this is Chris Mincola with the Mincola Group over at West USA Realty, and I just wanted to give you your weekly market update on the housing market and how things are looking right now. Please make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube. And let's get started. So the first thing we're going to look at, and please feel free to share this with your friends. We would greatly appreciate that if you could push it out. It's great information. This is not anything I'm certainly making up. I get all the information from the Crawford report. They tie right in with our multiple listing service, get us all the hard data, try to bring that to you weekly so we can keep an eye on it. And also I bring in some other national factors that are maybe important. Like today, I want to talk about interest rates, which are affecting the market. We've seen huge hikes. We were at 3.4 in January. May 6th, we were at 5.5. And we did had a little dip in the last week. We were at 5.28. We're right back up, right around that 5.5 range. But historically, obviously, this is great. Back 10 years ago, we were right around that 5 or 6 mark. And then back in the 80s, we were, holding around 17, 18, 19%. So historically, we're obviously doing great, but this is really making a big difference because when you go from basically 3.5 to 5.5%, that means 20% higher payment, 20% higher payment for people. That's 20% less in buying power, right? So it's definitely going to change our demand, which we'll look at more here in a minute. But wanted to point that out first because that's really a big factor in what's driving the market right now. Redfin economists basically put us at some home price appreciation expected to trend a little down. Now, these are national numbers. Obviously, this is going to look a little different in the greater Phoenix area because we're usually higher than that national average, typically a seller's market. But Redfin is saying that we were at the quarter one of 2022, we were at about 19.8%. Second quarter, we were put us at about 15.9%. Quarter three of this year, they're projecting 12.9% again nationally, 10.8 by the fourth quarter. As interest rates continue to rise, because we'll probably see right around 6%, give or take a little bit by the end of the year. And then first quarter of next year, 6.5, 5.4 by the second quarter, 4.3 by the third quarter, and then 3.2 by the end of next year as rates continue to rise to fight the inflationary factors, which we've talked about in the past. So list versus sales price is a big factor when we see this sort of thing happen. And in the greater Phoenix area, we see that, we were, as far as active price per square foot, we actually are at we are at 360 on average, but we see a little bit of leveling off with that at that 360 or just below 360 on the charts we're given by the Crawford report. And then under contract, we're actually looking at 305 on average price per square foot. The average list price, and the actual sales price. Of course, these lines are starting to kind of merge together across and flip, where we're looking at, around 280 to 270, and those are getting ready to kind of flip, and they're leveling off and kind of run into each other. So big differences there, things to watch as interest rates go up. It just basically prices a lot of people out, right? And it's kind of helps to slow things down a little bit, maybe put us in more of a normal market and fight those inflationary factors. So the Crawford Market Index, we look at this every week. If we are at 100, we're in a balanced market. If we're below 90 on the index, we're in a buyer's market. And if we're above 110, we're in a seller's market. This week, the overall index is at 287.6. That's down 10 points from last week. So that's why we like to keep an eye on this every week. The demand index, even though it's kind of still in that middle range, is at 96.8. So that puts us 3.2% below normal, but in that range still. between 90 and 110. And then our supply is a big factor, even though has increased. We're at 33.7. That means we're at on the index 33.7. That means we're at 64% below normal, but we were in the 70s, mid 70s, even high 70s for quite a while, as far as where we were before, where we're more like 75% below normal. So we have had an influx in inventory that obviously, supply and demand obviously comes into play along with these interest rates. As far as the cities are concerned, the ones that taken the biggest hit, over 30%, in the decrease, in all cities have decreased. Whereas before, most of our cities were much higher or going up over the really super hot market that we were in. We see that these other cities are down by 30% or more on the Cromford Market Index, and that would be Avondale, Chandler, Gilbert, Cave Creek, and Queen Creek. The two cities with the lowest decreases in CMI, because all cities have decreased on the charts, are Fountain Hills and Paradise Valley. They're at the lowest at 21% decreases in the last week, in that change in the last week. The cities with the highest CMI are the top 7. That would be Fountain Hills, Scottsdale, Glendale, Avondale, Mesa, Goodyear, and Phoenix. They're all over 300 on the index still. So quite a bit of a decrease. We see that our average decrease in the last month has been 28%. And the difference there obviously is that we see that a little bit of a less on the seller side as far as what's going on there, as far as their selling power. Okay. So we do see that we right now, because of this, we have a lot more people looking to sell, buy, kind of move on, and do something now rather than later. Again, doesn't, as I talked about last week, even though we're going into a recession, doesn't necessarily always mean that every recession means that we're going to have some sort of housing bubble or a decrease in equity and those sorts of things. We've already talked about that. Active listings, excluding under contract properties, they've gone since January, they've gone from the mid to high 5s all the way up to 9,000 currently in inventory. We see a much stronger and higher, sharper turn on upwards since April with that, or beginning of May, mid-April. So in the last couple of weeks, few weeks, we've seen that huge increase in almost a doubling, close to a doubling of an inventory of active, excluding those under contract properties. So we had a little bit of an increase last year also, but this is much sharper. Okay. And obviously during the holidays, things usually kind of cool off anyway. So moving right along on these charts, just want to show you days for inventory for 2022, days of inventory excluding under contract properties. That would put us at 27.1 days of inventory. Just to give you a quick idea, in 2019, before the pandemic, we were at 68.2 days of inventory on the market. Okay, 2020, we're at 51. We're currently at 27.1. Last year, it was 16.8. So, big differences there. Obviously, supply and demand, again, comes into play always. Accepted contracts, weekly accepted contracts, and what that looks like. So let's take a look. On the market for contract days, first of all, we have in January, we had 8 days on market for contract days. How long would it take to get under contract? February, March, was around 7. Now we're at 9. So we'll kind of watch that probably trend up a little bit, into the 10s next. Obviously, as far as on how long does it take to go under contract? Okay, so right now we're at 9 days on average. Contracts weekly, In January, we had 2,400 a week on average. Now we're at 2,000 a week using round numbers. So less people buying. Again, those interest rates and higher prices have just priced a lot of people out of the market. And we're still in a supply shortage, even though we had an increase in those numbers in supply. And then in January, we had price reductions, 432 price reductions. And the same week for this month, we've already had 1,496 price reductions. Again, people are figuring out maybe they have to price a little bit more towards that average appraised value versus the high comp plus $20,000, which we were seeing a lot of that sort of thing happening because prices were just, properties were just flying off the shelf. There was no inventory and super high demand before rates exploded. So now we're going to look at the percentage of seller paid closing costs the last couple of weeks. We're about 3 to 5%. They've gone from 3 to 5%. Again, this is the last indicator of a shifting market, seller concessions, closing costs that are paid by the seller for the buyer. Something to keep an eye on, obviously. And then, once we see those numbers change to maybe like 25%, we'll be more in a balanced market if we get to that point. So that's something to really keep an eye on, because again, that's going to be our last indicator of the 3 points we talked about on the last couple of weeks to keep an eye on. The monthly median sales price in January was 437. Right now we're at 480. That's the median sales price. Annual appreciation has definitely been going up. And it's starting to level off, but we're up to, about a 29% pace. Back in January, and now we're at about 27%. So, definitely we'll keep an eye on that. And 2016 to 2019, 2016 to 2018, we were looking at even up to 2019, we were at 5 to 8%, depending on the year, was about 5 to 8%. So big difference in what we're seeing in those appreciation numbers, with 2021 at 27.5%. And right now, again, we're running right around that same level, but we're seeing, instead of an increase same time this year, seeing from last year, this time we're kind of seeing a little bit of a leveling off. So again, something to keep an eye on. Super important to watch these every week, right? Guys, that's really all I have for you this week. If you have any questions at all, always feel free to reach out to us for more information about your area, a free market analysis of your property. If you're looking to buy, we can get you pre-approved with one of our loan officers that we can refer to you. If you have any questions about maybe what to do to get your property ready for sale, or just have some general questions, we'd love to be able to help you out. You can always reach out to us at 480-788-8569. Or you can email us at home@mincolagroup.com. Check us out at mincolahomes.com, mincolagroup.com, and be sure again to subscribe and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk to you next time.